Hello everybody, and welcome to the latest coverage for the Legends of Chima TV series. This episode was called The Greatest Race Ever.
It's
So
episode
basically,
8,
episode 8.
for the record.
Yes. Quick preface like I always do, the link is in the description. However, with this one, there is a special circumstance. In order to view the episode, when you click on the link, there's a little number above the, not a little number, there's a bunch of numbers that link to different players. The first player, the one that automatically comes up when you click the link, is not actually working because it was removed due to copyright concerns, I guess. But all other players seem to work fine. Like the one we used was player 2. So just click the number 2.
2, 3, 4 on, whatever you're comfortable with.
Joining me for this go round is Kahi, and only Kahi, because everyone else is currently away, and for the sake of getting this out in a timely manner, we decided, hey, let's just do it. So okay, this episode was interesting, and it was among my favorites thus far, but I think my favorite would still have to be the attack on the Eagle Spire one, because that one had good humor and good suspense and whatnot. Yeah. This was just a race, but I think they handled it pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah.
There's a couple things, but really the big things to take away from this episode are the introduction of two new characters. One is Dom De La Whoosh, the peacock, I guess.
Oh man.
And his thing is he's like a famous racer, and he participates in the Speedor race, and he is a pretty good character, all things considered.
He has like this matador kind of accent thing going on for him, and I really like the voice actor, honestly, the guy who plays him. It's kind of surprising because like all of the main voice actors I kind of hate. I'm okay with Eris, but Laval just like drives me up the wall. His voice actor is terrible. But this, like, a lot of the supporting cast, not a lot, several of the supporting casts have really good voices. Who's that guy in the lion side that has this really good voice? I forget his name. Is it like Laval's father, or it's like some? Anyhow, basically, supporting characters have a lot of great voice acting in this, which is surprising. I was kind of. It's one thing to have like terrible voice actors all the way around. It's another thing to have your main characters be bad and like all of these supporting characters to be good. But
yeah,
that's just something that
it's
goes
pretty
on.
Interesting. And really, the characters that are supporting tend to have, like you just said, the best voice actors. But when I think supporting, I'm actually referring to some of the other tribes too.
Yeah,
like think of the more minor tribes, the beavers. They may not have the greatest voice actors, but they have voices that are fitting for their characters. The line delivery's fine. The rhinos, they're meant to be comedy, but they're fitting enough. Yeah. And then you get like the lions, which are all awkward and whatnot. The really crocodiles.
Like, I like the crocodiles. They're just trying too hard to sound mean, and like I'm not gonna lie, I really hate dumb voices in kids shows. Yes. Like characters that are supposed to be dumb, I hate those voices. So like, you know, gorillas, bears, not really a fan.
Rhinos to an extent.
To an extent, yeah, not as much. The ravens, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes their voice can be a little grating, but their dialogue makes up for it, and the presentation kind of like, you know, makes up for the thing. They still have this high pitched kids TV show voice, but you know, we've talked about voice acting before, but you know. I really have to like hone in this guy, the dialogue for this guy, the presentation of this guy, everything about this Dom De La Whoosh. Very well done. He's easily the best part of this episode.
But then we get to character number 2, the mysterious Shadow Wind.
I'm glad they're doing something like this, you know. Like
there must be mystery.
Aggressive one.
This is the first time since Chima started I'm legitimately interested in like who is this guy.
I'm interested in this only because, and like here's the thing, they make a really big deal throughout Chima about the tribe and how everything has to be equal among the tribes, and like all these different tribes are all coming together. But then like the problem about it is now we have all these characters coming up. Dom De La Fuma is a peacock. This guy, I don't really know who Shadow Wind is, but he has tusks, so maybe like a warthog, or I'm kind of leaning on warthog, to be honest. but I don't really know. The problem is, where are the other warthogs? Where are the other peacocks? You know, they make such a big deal about tribes. Every tribe has compete, like, you know, only like tribes competing in the speedo races, doing all this stuff. You just think that you would see these tribes earlier, or see more people from these tribes, and that's the one thing I'm kind of getting, you know, from this is like, why is all this happening? And of course, you know, there's all this other stuff in here. Laval kind of uses a drug basically to jumpstart his speeder. His speeder won't start at the beginning, and he decides to use chi to start it, which apparently is not illegal, but it's also like that's somehow, you know, like Krager was really irresponsible with his use of chi, but like using it to rig your race totally justifies it.
I don't really understand, but
I guess like the big thing I have,
and like at the end he was getting praised for being such a great racer.
yeah, he was being praised for being such a great racer, and he's like, well, he kind of cheated. I mean, like, not really, but you don't see any of the other racers. I'm sure if it was like, you know, completely possible, all the other racers would be doing it. It's implied that like it kind of whacks around the speedo, so like it's harder to steer or control or whatnot. Like it's really risky, but you don't really see that for the first half of the episode.
Yeah.
Until he tries to get more chi and it starts zapping. I guess it's zapping it from his body or something.
I don't even know.
And it turns out I don't even know about that.
I think it's because he plugs the chi, the speedo steals it from him, but when the chi runs out in his body, because it's using that as the power source, then I guess it just starts to deplete.
So there's really no. Why doesn't everybody use chi before they start the race if it's apparently not illegal? You know, like this famous dude, he's like, wow, you totally, you know, you probably would have won. You're a really great racer. And I was like, oh, really cool. But like, I think if, you know, he was neck and neck with Krager at the beginning. If Krager had decided to actually do the, like, you know, just take chi beforehand, it wouldn't actually have happened.
Yeah. You made a comment during the video about like the one thing which you could change.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Chima, so we were talking about Laval. Enlighten.
Yes. Okay. So I did mention this. Obviously, you know, this episode. It was a great episode. No, not great. Oh, I guess it was kind of a great episode. Not much happened.
By comparison, it was great.
Yeah. By comparison, it was
there were
great.
no moments that made me go, "Wow, this is awful."
Yeah.
So
basically, so it's like
step up.
It's so this is going to be like more generally. It's going to be like the whole concept of the series, not just this episode. But I was thinking about, you know, the concept of the series, and now you have like, you know, Krager and Laval, you know, all this stuff, and I realized there's one really simple change that would make this story much more complex and give like these characters a lot more diversity and like motivation and all this stuff. This whole thing of like Krager and Flower and doing all this. That's not needed. What you should have totally had is like had at the beginning, you know, Laval and Krager, they're friends and they do the stuff and everything. It's peacetime and all the stuff. But then the Krager's parents, they don't actually end up dying. They just, something happens and they decide to start a war with the lions. So instead of actually having this whole like kind of camaraderie, these two kids are now caught in between their parents' war and their tribe's war. And they have to, like, you know, the Krager has to deal with, like, you know, am I like a friend? Do I owe my allegiance to my people? Do I owe my allegiance to my parents? This kind of thing. And it's not like this whole thing where Krager suddenly just turns evil and has, like, mind control over him and all this stuff. That doesn't need to happen. And it's like, it's kind of a real thing for kids, too. Like, you know, sometimes your parents, you know, dislike this other family or dislike something. And, like, you're kind of caught in this crossfire because of something personal your parents have. And it's, you know, this same thing. Like, you know, how as a kid, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with like being in kind of a position of authority, but also having to like not be around a person or like, you know, to almost hate a person because of whatever people, or specifically your parents or authorities, what goes on between them. I think that would be a good approach to something, and it's a very simple change, really.
I must agree.
And like it makes a lot more sense for both those characters and the dynamic they have. As opposed to like, no, his parents aren't really dead, and his sister has this mind control flower thing, and she's spraying him, and he's doing the evil stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really if I had to pick up my biggest issue with Chima, it would definitely have to be the execution of the two characters, protagonist and antagonist. Because really, you look at all these tribes, the initial concept for Chima was this. And this goes back again to how they've adapted the plot and how it was marketed for the purposes of expanding it into a show. The initial concept was lions, eagles, gorillas versus crocodiles, wolves, and ravens.
Yes.
All allied on one united front. And yes, the villains may have been led by the crocodiles, but they were all villains and they were all equally doing stuff. The way the TV show has adapted it, maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. They've portrayed the ravens as kind of these that will go with anyone that pays us approach. And the wolves are, they're bloodthirsty and vicious sometimes, and they will side with the villains 99% of the time. However, they have motivations of their own, and they're not purely one-dimensional. But at the same time, that like creates... it makes more sense, and it gives them more depth as characters, but what it did in the end was basically took away the show's focus as far as the antagonists are concerned, because you have the crocodiles manipulating everyone. Yeah. But why are the crocodiles manipulating everyone? Because Krager's sister is manipulating him with a mind control flower, whereas in the original plot, Krager, he was motivated by his sister, but he was doing everything of his own free will. He was definitely leading the charge. He had a clear goal in mind: defeat the lions, take their chi, and everyone else had to unite and fight him. And then the show introduced all the bears and the rhinos and the beavers and all these side characters. And yes, it did a very good job of fleshing out the world, and it definitely is better suited for a cartoon series because you can drag the plot out with filler episodes.
Exactly, as long
of
as
them
you
just
want
doing
to.
random antics and the crocodiles manipulating everyone. But what you were just saying about Laval, that would be a much better way to flesh out his and Krager's characters.
Yeah. I feel like I totally agree with what you're saying in that sense. I do like the thing about giving diversity to the world. I'm kind of against the idea of bad races in fantasy.
Well,
there's these whole section of people and they're all just kind of evil. For Bionicle, it's kind of excused because yes, everybody has Shadow is evil, but Shadow is like kind of a corrupting element. Like it seemed to be like, it's not really anyone who belongs to Shadow is evil as much as Shadow makes people evil. So there's no real original people of Shadow. They just are all, Shadow kind of corrupts you in that way.
I don't believe I made this clear. It was not just because they were evil. They actually did have a motivation, but I think it was just bland, not really creative. Okay, he convinces them, well, the lions are handling this wrongly. They're being, there's some shady stuff going on behind the scenes with the distribution, so let's unite to take what's rightfully ours.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of, obviously it's a Lego line, right? It's a Lego Kids line. There's a lot of stuff that could be done better, and it just isn't. But it's like the I think Chima so far, outside of maybe Bionicle, but I think Bionicle lived up to a lot of its potential. Not all of it, but quite a bit of it. However, Chima has lived up to none of it, and it had a lot. The original concept was great. The character, the world design. If you notice, they have different kind of styled designs for every one of the tribes. You see a bit of it in the beginning where there's this earthquake, and the gorillas live in these pod houses that hang from trees. Yeah. And of course the eagles live in this thing this giant library that's on top of this mountain. And all of this is great. It's really creative.
Shows this episode made me appreciate Chima, if not for the execution, but just for the concept behind it. Yeah. It had a lot of promise. And still, I guess, does. It can get better.
It still does. It can get better. It's just this whole premise behind this thing. You could, I guess, there's only so far I can go with it. But you could really try to, push something, kind of new, or have some kind of gray and gray kind of morality. I like when you on kid shows a lot. You know, like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where there's that one time where like he tries to solve this argument between these two people, and he ends up lying to get both of them to agree.
Yeah.
I forget this episode, but like, you know, there's these two tribes, and they're like, oh, we've always been in argument because of this one thing that happened way in the past. And now, like, he solves it by lying to him. They're like, oh, I knew him. Like, they're just two kids, and they did this sport thing. And like, yes, like, you know, it kind of destroys like that one, but it's also like there's really no easy solution to this. There's no way you can be like, hey, this is how everything turns out, or like everything works out hunky dory. It's conveniently just like this. We can all just get along, because sometimes you just can't. Like, it would be, for me, like a big thing would be like if the lines were kind of messing with the chi distribution. And they were kind of like, you know, we're not sure about these crocodile guys. We're just going to give them just a little bit less, keep some more for ourselves, just in case it turns up to war. And then, like, other people are, you know, the crocodile, not the crocodiles, the ravens and, like, the wolves are looking at this, and they're like, wait a second, that's not right. Why do these guys get the control we have? You know, they're like, you know, just in case we might be wrong, that's not a reason for keep this stuff from us. So then they start this war, and there's this whole gray and gray thing. No one's really right. There's no like good side, and there's no real bad side per se. Just bad choices made by people.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my inert desire to remake things.
You should
Like
remake
literally
Chima.
anything.
You should do it. And you should
I
make
want
it
to
a
remake
story,
Chima.
And
I
you should
should
make
finish.
it great.
I have
I know.
so many concepts for my End of Bionicle thing, like redesigning 2009. Man, I have like crazy off the wall ideas that I really think would work, but you know we can't dwell on what could have been all too much as we can comment on how it could be done better. So, Messa, what's your thoughts on these episodes? I've kind of taken up this giant chunk of time
That's
to talk
fine.
about my fan
It was
fiction,
interesting.
basically.
It was interesting, and it was necessary, because basically my thoughts boil down to some rather simplistic ones. Basically, this was... You didn't see the last one.
I did
But the
not.
last one was a mess. I'll
Was
give
it
you
a
the
mess?
short version of what it was. It was the 100-year moon, and you should watch our coverage, because we go into
Okay,
this
I'll watch the coverage.
100-year moon. Every 100 years, the moon does something vague, and the wolves are affected by it, and it basically turns them into zombies.
What?
And
Where did this? Dude, this is everything from. Like, they always mention. Oh, go on. Yeah, go on.
and the wolves'
Finish this.
eyes turn purple, and they start rampaging, and they have no grasp on reality, and they will destroy everything they come into contact with. And the wolves go around warning everyone this is gonna happen, and the the crocodiles, like Cragger and Crueler, have this plan. Well, let's kidnap someone, and let's hold them hostage, and let's deposit them in the wilderness while the wolves are going rampant. And then, of course, people will have to go save them because they care about them, and maybe they'll get mauled to death by the wolves. And they decided to kidnap a gorilla, and so the gorillas mobilize in their slow vehicles with support from Laval, Ares, and the skunk, who also is
I hate that
affected
skunk.
by the moon.
I so hate that skunk, by the way.
The skunk had a major role.
I'm so glad I wasn't there for that episode. I would have torn my ears
you
out.
need to watch the episode for
Mess
context's
up.
sake.
You love torturing me, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
And then the skunk
Well.
ended up saving the day. And
Okay, so
basically,
what? That guy's the worst character.
and then
hope, like,
basically, Chima had been on a
Whoosh.
steady upward slope, and that episode sent it plummeting back down, which is why I'm glad this episode was so good in comparison.
in comparison. But Marion, this is no good, like, this is like, oh, this is a great TV show you should have to watch.
No,
This
it's
is
not.
like, compared to all the other stuff that Chima's put out, this is not a bad episode.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I hope Dewoosh like takes over for the skunk. I hate the skunk so much.
He probably won't
Dewoosh is a
appear
great
again.
character. I know, that's what kills me. I'm like, oh no, this dude's so great.
It seems
But,
like
alright,
they
so-
wrapped up his appearance very nice.
I actually don't, the idea of like having this moon that changes, and they're all, like, I was like, I thought that was really crazy until you told me that the wolves went around and told people that it was going to happen, because I'm like, alright, no, that's actually kind of cool that they did that, you know, it's not like this, oh, you know, suddenly, out of nowhere, wolf zombies. They're like, hey guys, this thing's always happened 100 years. You should watch out for us. Make sure we don't do anything crazy. We can't control this. I like that. That's a good concept. But of course, it got ruined because Chima.
Well,
Yeah.
unless
Well,
you have anything else, do you have something else to add?
I do. One last thing I have to add, and I brought this up during the episode. They keep mentioning the rules. Like,
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
we need to talk about this because, like, it's going to stretch out this coverage a bit long. But, like, who made up these rules? They always talk about them. Like, alright, so first off, like, there's an earthquake and there's this golden chi. Alright, fine. And then they're like, alright, we can't actually keep it for ourselves. We have to give it to everybody so the chi remains in, like, in balance or something. So I'm like, alright, I guess that makes sense. Different tribes have to have different amounts of chi. Everyone has the same amount of chi to be, like, completely equal. And he's like, oh no, we're just going to have this and people are going to win it in a tournament. Wait a second. How does that make it balanced? Like, at all? Is the chi sentient? Does it know, like, hey, you didn't win me in, like, this pod racing excuse of a race thing. So, obviously, like, so now, like, how does the chi know that, hey, we're all supposed to be getting out? I get it, like, if it's supposed to, like, this balance thing when everybody's supposed to have the same amounts, but obviously there's not the same amounts going on. Who made these rules?
That's just the Lions not wanting the chi to go to anyone undesirable. They want it to be fair.
I know, but like
That's all it is.
the Lions are just like, oh, it's the like somehow it's this ancient law that they have to follow. The Lions can be like, oh, we made this, right? Yeah, we don't actually need it.
I do believe the Lions made it themselves.
Did they actually make it themselves? Because like there's a point where he's like,
it is the
he's like,
only viable option because the Lions have always been in control of the chi. That's kind of their deal.
oh, man, and like this, I mean, like the thing about it is like at the beginning, Laval's dad is basically like, no, we can't keep this for us. Laval's like, can we keep this? He's like, no, we can't keep this for ourselves. That's against the rules. And then immediately after, he's like, but you better win this because if it ends up in anybody else's hands, it can be disastrous. So like, wait a second. You made up the freaking rules, right? Just be like, oh, alright, this is such a big object. We're gonna keep this one under wraps because, like, we don't know how you guys can handle it. So I can't get over like the thing that they have to adhere to these rules when they know it can have such adverse effects. Just staggers me. Like obviously the crocodile has been pulling crap for a while. They tried to pull down the eagle place. Like they weren't even subtle about it. They were trying to kill all of the eagles. So at some point, like if the crocodiles race, like Laval, all the tribes come to race, and Laval's like, the rules say every tribe has to race. Why can't the Lions made the rule? Like, be like, no, wait, hold on. We said that when there was peace. Obviously, there's not peace here. You guys tried to kill like an entire race. You knew we committed genocide. We're not letting you get this super powerful object. Okay, that's no. We're not letting you do that. That will totally throw everything off balance.
I don't really understand. Like, there comes a point, like in the original Chima plot, it was literally an all-out war. So obviously, people did take sides, but there kind of has to come a time where they have to put their foot down and say, no, you will not be able to do this anymore. You are a madman. You are insane. You are an attempted mass murder.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't get behind adhering to your own rules so much, even when you know, like, they outright admit, if this gets in the crocodile's hands, it's going to completely do it. Just don't give it to him. Like, that's your solution. It's not like, hey, they might do something. They literally just tried to wreck people's homes. Like, this is basically an act of war. If this was if this was a smart TV show, the legals would be like, hey, what the frick, man? You tried to destroy our homes. This is war now. We can't have this. You can't just go and pull down our homes and just be like, oh, sorry, dudes, and just go back like nothing happened.
Yeah. And like the next day they're just back to racing.
Just back to driving. Like everybody's just racing and driving. I would like, as the Eagles, I would be really kind of like against our basically mortal enemies getting this super powerful object from our allies. These guys who have like basically the Lions and Eagles have this like unspoken alliance between each other. I don't know. It's just like there comes a point where like I always like I kind of assumed that like the chi was sentient at the beginning, But if it's not, and the Lions just create these rules, this is like the stupidest thing you could ever have. And it's like this. It's the craziest status quo is God thing. You know, like kids shows always revert to status quo. You know, like SpongeBob is always back in status quo. SpongeBob is always gonna have his deal, Krabby Patties. We were in whatever. Fairly Odd Parents. It's same deal. Everything returns back to original. This is like people commit acts of war. Tribes commit acts of war, and they just leave it. I can't get over that. Anyhow,
it's all fun and games for like the first couple episodes, but the last one there was like a literal attempt at mass murder.
I know, like it's. I would be like the thing we talked about before. Like kidnapping a gorilla and putting him in the middle of the forest. All right, that's manipulating stuff. I can see why they would continue to do something like that. They don't really have any proof that the crocodile trying to sabotage something. Crocodile tanks were out in the open with like chains speared to the top of the Eagle Mountain, and they're pulling the entire village down. That's not subtle anymore, guys. That's a message.
Yeah.
These guys.
In reality, when you think about it, that was pretty big, wasn't it?
That was huge.
That was like a united front to kill everyone.
Their whole thing was like, hey, we're gonna kill everybody. It's like people, like, if people tried to nuke Washington, D.C.
That's the equivalent.
It is literally the equivalent of that. And like they're not trying to like these nukes don't come from nowhere. Like these nukes, and they have like North Korea was here, like labeled on them as they fly from the sky.
Yeah.
I not to be offensive. People listening from North Korea. Yeah, we're not. It's not necessarily like completely racist, but like North Korea technically did say they're trying to do this against the United States. It's a political metaphor. I just roll with it. Basically, it's an act of war.
Yes.
And at no point should you be like, no, the rules say that anybody can win this super powerful object. It doesn't apply. It's a different time now. This doesn't apply anymore. It's when Krieger's parents were actually around and they were actual adults who knew how to handle things, and not these two kids. One's like sister. I still can't get over that mind control thing.
It is a terrible plot device.
It's a horrific plot device. But
Well, that is Chima. Episode 8,
That's
the
Chima.
greatest race ever.
More ranting about how bad Chima is and how good it can be.
I don't know. This was a pretty good discussion. I think Chima is a very interesting theme because, while it is bad, it also has a level of complexity and world building that I actually think is greater than Ninjago had.
I completely agree. If you go on, I actually went and read some of this stuff beforehand. I don't remember a lot of it. But a lot of stuff really goes in depth about how how each culture goes, what each culture values. The Ravens, of course, they value money, but each culture has these different things they value. Eagles value
I haven't
intelligence.
really seen a level of complexity in this theme since Bionicle.
Yeah, the problem is it's all they decided to make it a kids show. I feel like that's one of the real problems behind it. They're like, all right, we're gonna make this a kids show, and all these people who are who build this stuff before, they're like, well, can't really do that for the kids because these kids are idiots. We can't actually have anything complex offered to them, else they'll reject it, just like that Avatar show.
Yup.
Totally flop. So I just wish Lego would get behind a show that treated kids intelligently. Can you imagine if not Nickelodeon or it was aired on Nickelodeon, but Lego had been the driving force behind Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they had the same. It would have been amazingly popular. The sets would have sold like anything, and people would not just be praising the sets; they would be praising the TV show. I feel like that's something Lego doesn't really realize, is that hey, you can actually make a good TV show and people will praise the TV show for being what it is, not just as an advertisement for Lego sets. This show is basically a half-hour commercial for Lego.
Yeah.
If they treated it differently, it could be this show would receive acclaim on sites that don't really feature toys off too much. What's it? Not Kotaku, but their sister site IO9. They do television show reviews and kid show reviews. Stuff like Beware the Batman and whatnot. Summertime.
Yup.
If they did it, it would be seen as an actual TV show. Right now, everybody just sees it as a commercial, And that's what Lego sees it as, and that's why it's never going to be anything more. Unfortunately. Chima has so much potential in it.
It's a very nice sandbox, but not
It
much
is.
else. Anyway, let's
I
wrap
think
this up.
that's... Alright,
No,
our next superior
comment.
opinions... Our next superior opinions might be about Chima.
Our
After we're done
next
with
superior opinion? Do you mean the first superior opinion?
No, we already recorded this new show about Bionicle that I'm sure everybody's really excited to see, about redesigning and stuff. Var's still working on it. It was my fault. I'm not liking him. I didn't get it to him in time. I fell asleep and like he went somewhere else, and it's a huge big mess. But look forward to that. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can actually see that. And if you made it to the end of this video, let's wrap this up. Like Mr. said before.
Yup. But yes, it has been fun, and if you listen to this, good for you. And we will see you all next time for the next coverage of Legends
Next episode.
of Chima.
10 minutes.
I'm messing out.
I'm Kai.
And goodbye.